All right, let's get going. It's about 3 minutes after. So again, thank you everyone for joining the webinar. And we're very excited to be launching the round 2 of the CFA Incubator. And today we'll be sort of presenting an overview of the incubator, some information, some experiences on how round 1 went. And we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end, so we'll be able to have a lot of your questions. We have the way that the webinar works is you need to mute yourselves, and sort of all Q&A is going to be run through the chat eventually. And so if you do have questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to write them into the chat. And then when we go to the Q&A session, then I will ask you to unmute yourself and you can ask the questions directly, adding more flavor. Or if you are not in a position to unmute yourself, we can just read the questions out loud, and we'll try to respond as best we can. Just as a note, if there are questions that we are not able to cover during the webinar, please feel free to email them to incubator@cfalliance.org, and we'll be trying to respond to those as soon as we can. So again, very pleased that you could all join here. And I want to, so this is sort of what we're gonna go over a bit today. Let me just do a quick introduction to Conservation Finance Alliance, and then I'm going to pass it to my colleague Ben Guillon, who will just say a few words of introduction. So for those of you who don't know, the Conservation Finance is a leading global professional alliance for conservation finance experts, practitioners, and different organizations. We have about 1,600 members right now, and our mission is to promote awareness, expertise, and innovation in conservation finance globally. The incubator obviously addresses the innovation piece. We have 4 active working groups and multiple task forces. The task forces are very punctual activities. The working groups are listed on the right: innovation, protected areas, marine and coastal, and environmental funds. We produce research advisory services and papers and reports. A few of them are listed there. And of course, we are running the CFA Incubator on top of a few other projects that we're involved in. And maybe over to you, Ben, if you want to just say a few words of introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
We can. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, David. Yeah, so the incubator really came from that realization that although everybody is talking about all the big money that is available for biodiversity investments, and we hear every day someone raising a new fund, there is not really a strong pipeline of projects that can really feed those funds. So that's really the mission that the CFA has created for itself for the incubator. And David approached me. My company is more on the asset management side, focused on conservation finance, but we work a lot with angel investor groups and those large investment group. And so I felt that was a natural connection between the technical ability of the Conservation Finance Alliance and our ability on my side to source early stage funding and really help people connect to those VC group and those angel groups. So that's been very fruitful for phase 1, and we're looking forward to doing more of that for phase 2.
Great, thanks, Ben. It's great to have you as co-leading the incubator work with me, and looking forward to an exciting round 2. So thanks for being part of that. I'll go on and I'll pass it back to Ben a little bit later on, but let me just start with a kind of a mission, if you will, for the incubator, and point out our new little logo there with the tadpole. So the incubator seeks to identify, support, and promote innovative finance solutions and entrepreneurs that are addressing conservation finance challenges and opportunities. So a distinction here that's important is we're not trying to support conservation businesses per se. There's a lot of social enterprises out there trying to achieve conservation. We are really focused on the conservation finance piece, the financial mechanisms, the financial solutions that are really moving those levers. And if you're not sure what that is, we do have a white paper out that goes into great detail on what the definition of conservation finance is, which is quite broad. So in terms of the objectives, we talk about conservation finance ventures and concepts. So the unifying feature is that they need to be innovative solutions to conservation challenges, again, involving finance mechanisms or economic tools. They create clear conservation outcomes or sustained conservation financing. So it could be just a revenue generating tool as long as that money is earmarked or allocated to conservation. They could return a profit. This could be either as an independent company making a profit for their shareholders, or as a financial product, like a green bond type thing that would, produce a return to investors. But they don't have to be. And as I said before, that they would, they do need to use economic and or finance tools in them. That they need to have some element of conservation finance there. And just to differentiate from other incubators, we do not take equity in the companies. The incubator provides some grant funding. The focus is clearly on conservation finance, and as I kind of alluded to before, these innovative approaches could be for-profit or could be non-profit. They do not have to be for-profit type of mechanisms. They could be, for example, regulatory solutions that really improve the alignment of incentives, and again, from an economic perspective. So with round one, we were very fortunate to have 75 applications we received in the first year. This basically we launched the call back in the end of 2019, and the operations have actually run till very recently. The last project just finished up very recently, so it's gone on a bit longer than we had hoped, but was really interesting. We got a wide geography of applications. If you look at the graphic there, you can see quite a range from Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America is the other blue. I'm obviously missing some of the colors there. Apologies. And about half were companies and half were nonprofits. So quite a diverse set of projects. And the way we worked last time, we planned to accept 5 projects into the incubator with some funding, and we were so overwhelmed with the response in terms of the innovative solutions that people proposed that we actually continued. We were able to provide those 5 top applications with funding and mentorship, but we also took on an additional 10 companies last time that we provided only mentorship for. And some of those companies have presented, and you can find their presentations on our webpage. And but these were the top 5 companies and projects that we took on. We were able to finance, and they included Blue Finance, which is an innovative organization looking at impact investing and other forms of finance for marine protected areas. A collaboration between Halcyon Agri and WWF US to set up a global fund to achieve more sustainability in smallholder rubber plantations and rubber and farmers. Really interesting project. GreenFi, which was a sort of a nature-focused microfinance type solution for tying ecosystem activities and efforts to credit at the local level. Really interesting approach for access to finance at a local level, tied to environmental management. Rimba, which was it's an NGO out in Malaysia, that is seeking ways to stack different ecosystem services, carbon and palm oil offsets and water services, things like that, to finance the long-term conservation of about 200,000 hectares of a key watershed in peninsular Malaysia. And Natrix, who is an innovative company that works on coastal restoration and protection. And we're fortunate enough to have Leonard Nelson here, who's the CEO of Natrix, to perhaps say a few words about his experience and about Natrix as well. So Leonard, over to you.
Sure. Well, thanks. Thanks, David. Can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you well. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, just wanted to spend a couple minutes. I'll try to be brief. But just wanted to kind of give a little bit of feedback on our participation with the incubator. And just in terms of Natrix, we make modular coastal solutions. So we're looking to change completely gray hardened infrastructure to more of a green-gray mix that harnesses nature rather than trying to conquer it. And so, one of the questions we had coming into the incubator was, A, how do we grow our business? And then B, can we use innovative financial, financing mechanisms to help accelerate that? And I can say at a high level, when we came into the incubator, we were solidly in the valley of death. We had 60,000 in revenue, trailing 12 months, and no revenue for about 3 or 4 months. And at this point, after going through the accelerator, we're run rating about $1 million a year, so over 100K a month in revenue. And, I think we've really learned a lot in the incubator. And a couple of things I'd mention. One is, just to first kind of leverage the introductions in the CFA network. I think that there's, as a startup, it's sometimes people don't want to pick up the phone because you're not the most important, person in the world to them, but there's just some great introductions and relationships we built that have kind of a global scale. David mentioned some of that geographic diversity. And so, for example, our financing round, we're closing a $7 million seed round right now for our firm, but that was a CFA introduction. We were able to work with folks like the Blue Finance team that David just mentioned. They helped us to understand the dynamics in the hospitality industry. So we're able to understand, is that a market we should pursue or not? We got a lot of input on parametric insurance and, how do insurers play into this whole thing. And, it's interesting. I like to use, when you're in a startup, I like to use the analogy of a action movie when there's a fight scene. And so in the movies, in a fight scene, all the bad guys for whatever reason, they run at the person one at a time, right? And then you beat up that one person, then you beat up the next person. But when you're in a startup, all the bad guys run at you at the same time. You've got a million different problems to solve. So it's really important to be able to kind of talk to people who have domain knowledge in those geographies, and it can help you understand, is this something you want to get into right now? What is that optimal choice of how to expend your limited resources? So I think that was really invaluable. And so some things, for example, in hospitality with coral reefs, we pressed pause on because it was the middle of COVID and Blue Finance was letting us know, hey, some of these hotels are just strapped for cash. So come back to it in 18 months. And now we're doing that as part of our financing, our round we're raising. We're now going to be able to go back out to hospitality now that things are picking back up. So that was huge. So just leverage anything, any of these intros that you get. It's an amazing network. The second thing I'd mention is that, it is important to simplify. And I think we were able to define for investors and define for innovative project financing opportunities our unit economics. So per cubic yard of, gray material versus cubic yard of green material that we can produce, here's the differences in cost. Here's the value. Here's the carbon difference. And by having that one chart, and I could show the chart if you guys are interested, but by having that one chart that helps people understand that's a profitable, repeatable thing, then the broader pro forma to wrap around a financing instrument becomes much easier. If you can't explain that, kernel that's repeatable at large scale quickly, then it can be really hard to get investors to agree to some sort of more complex instrument that you're wrapping around those kind of activities that you want to scale, across the world to hopefully achieve some sort of conservation outcome and potentially a dual outcome where there's financial returns as well. So I think that's key, something we learned, and we were able to do that, during the incubator, and we're able to get a lot of great feedback on both those things, both the unit economics and then the potential wrappers that we can place around that. And then finally, another thing that we learned, and I think is really important, I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of focus for entrepreneurs on risk capital, venture capital, financing early stage ventures. That's a lot of the info and just kind of like support that's out there is kind of guiding people towards the venture capital side of the risk return spectrum. But I think one thing we kind of realized during the incubator is if you look at the total global capital stock, I don't know the numbers, and it's going up pretty fast as much as the central banks are printing, but it's something like 250 trillion in assets out there. And most of that's boring, low risk, low return debt, kind of simple things, commercial paper, AAA rated paper, bonds, these kind of things. And I think that oftentimes new entities are really kind of get shoehorned into that. Let's look at this tiny sliver of capital available that's venture or that's this risk capital, but you want to open up your blinders and look at, how can we get creative with all that extra capital that's out there that's maybe a little bit more boring or a little bit more non-traditional in different ways. So I just encourage you to explore that as you're in the incubator, and that's paid a lot of dividends for us as well. So anyway, hope that's helpful, and any questions or I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you so much, Leonard, and really it's so great having you as part of the incubator, and wishing you the best success going forward, and really hope you can scale up and have the impact that you could have on the planet, because it's so needed. So if you don't mind sticking around, I'm sure there's going to be some questions, or could be some questions towards the end, if that would be good.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thanks. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here. Hopefully that'll work. So just some kind of lessons learned from us from round one. That there is innovation going on globally. There's a lot of interest in innovation, and we're really pleased to be able to provide a home for some of that. And the support that we were able to provide for sort of the concept development, some of those early, taking an idea and really turning it into a clear business or clear finance solution, was greatly appreciated and needed. And so we've actually adapted the program I'll tell you a little bit about later on to address that need. Scaling and replication is definitely a challenge. Most innovative organizations and opportunities are quite small. So where there are opportunities to partner with larger partners or larger corporations, for example, that are seeking an impact, those should be explored. And that, there's a lot of social enterprise incubators out there, but really very few focused on nature in general. So although we are, primarily focused on conservation finance, we recognize the need for greater diversity of nature-focused incubators out there. And there's a link to our web page there. And something just happened on my computer. So, okay. I think that's where we are. Okay, so just in terms of operations, how this whole thing works, the incubator is managed by the CFA Secretariat. We're responsible for overall management and oversight. We have an incubator task force, which is a sort of technical and advisory group. They provide the mentoring. They help define milestones with the projects, and they provide oversight. This is part of what we have. I mentioned the 4 working groups, so this is part of the innovation working group. Within that task force, there's a technical review committee. It's made up of about 7 members, and this committee reviews and approves the project. So I, as executive director, I'm not part of that committee, so I can provide feedback, and I'm not involved in the choices ultimately. And then Wildlife Conservation Society, which hosts the CFA, they are responsible for all the contracting and administrative oversight. And the incubator itself is led by myself and Ben Guillon, as I mentioned, and who you met earlier, who's the co-chair. So here's the process for the proposals. We have created, as I mentioned before, the idea that to provide a little more feedback on early concepts has pushed us to create this thing we're calling the concept feedback window. That is open for another week or so. And the idea here is that, it's a very short application process. It's really just describing what it is you're thinking. And you can apply for that either through an online form or downloading a form and emailing it to incubator@cfalliance.org. And we'll be providing feedback on a rolling basis through about November 10th. The open call for proposals, these are full proposals. It's a longer application. I'll show you a bit about that in a second. And that's open right now, and it's closing December 1st. So you don't have to go through the concept feedback window at all. You can choose to submit your proposal directly. But we are offering that initial feedback if that is helpful. So the winners will be announced. Our target date is December 22nd, and starting the incubation January, February, depending on how contracting goes. So again, this year we're shooting for 5 projects, and we will limit ourselves to those 5 projects this time. So the concept feedback window, this is what we're asking for, is just your contact information, and then a 1-sentence description. If you can describe what it is you're doing in 1 sentence, that really shows that you know what the concept is. And then what's your elevator pitch? So here we have a concise paragraph. We're asking for 5 sentences, for example, that captures the entire concept. So what is the context? That context is sort of like, what's the area within which this is working? The opportunity, why will it work now? Here, the opportunity is saying, so here's, given this context, this is where there's a chance to have an impact or some kind of improvement. Right now, why will it work? And then you describe the solution. So this solution will X, Y, Z, generate financing from some source and invested in some source, that kind of thing. So you're very specific what you're actually planning on doing, and then the expected outcomes or the returns. In other words, if successful, this will then result in $1 million a year in financing for XYZ park or sustainable agriculture or something like that. And then the next steps in terms of what we need to do is do a feasibility study on this specific topic, or prepare a business plan, that kind of thing. It'll give us an idea of what you're thinking. If you don't have all those answers, that's okay. That's the idea of this concept feedback window. And we will either provide you some written feedback by just sending you an email, or we will offer to set up about a 30-minute call during which we will kind of brainstorm, if you will, the idea and the issue with you. And that sort of depends on how what we feel would be the most helpful for you. And then you would take that feedback and turn that into a full proposal that you would then submit by December 1st. So that's the concept feedback. The full proposals are a bit more detailed. Here we're asking for the same thing up top here. So the 1-sentence description, the elevator pitch, but then we're asking for a socioeconomic model. Why does this concept work from an economic and social point of view? Specifics on what the impact on nature would be. A bit more on the sort of what we're calling the champion or the entrepreneur or the lead actors. It could be an organization, it could be an individual, it could be a group of individuals. So feel free to provide that information, attach a CV, a resume, things like that, to give us more information on who you are, who's going to be implementing this. This is for anything entrepreneurial, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit. The who is doing it is just absolutely key. And so please share that information with us. Who are your key partners and stakeholders that are engaged in this? A total rough budget to implement, not necessarily, and this is not the sort of how you would use the financing from the incubator. This is how you would actually achieve your vision of what your project is. So it could be a full budget, and from that, we'll then see how the financing from the CFA, which is in this case right now currently provided by one of our main donors, MAVA Foundation. How that money can be impactful in the overall scheme of things. A rough timeline. Again, you don't have to predict. You could do it by quarter. It doesn't have to be by month. But then some specific milestones. In other words, what do you hope to achieve from that? And then any additional information that you want to present to us. And for example, if you already have a business plan that you've written, great, you can feel free to attach it, and presentation, technical specifications, anything that you feel would be would contribute to us being able to verify that what you're proposing has legs, has a chance of success, and that kind of thing. So, and just sort of reiterating the timeline here. So the call for proposals this is of course an old slide that needs to be taken out, so never mind. Here's the web page that we have up. Thank you to Kumar, who set all that up, and there's the link to it down there. You can see conservationfinancealliance.org incubator. There's also a link from our homepage, so conservationfinancealliance.org will get you here, and further on down you can see there'll be all kinds of ways to fill out the forms and thing. So I think that so one more slide for me, then I'm going to pass it over to Ben a little bit here, just in terms of how the technical the technical review committee would assess these and choose, is based on a series of criteria here. So overall strength of the concept, the clarity of the presentation. Are you clear on what you're planning on doing? How innovative is it? The skills and experience of the proponent or the entrepreneur. And again, you can see that's weighted a bit more heavily. The degree of potential conservation benefit or the impact on nature, that's also weighted heavily. Those are the two highest rated impacts there. And then the potential financial or economic impact. So how much money is going to be generated or cost saved, scalability and replicability, and then the likelihood of success. So these are our criteria. We score them for each of the projects. The technical review committee scores them, and then the discussions ensue, and we go from there. So over to you, Ben, I think, for the next few here.
Yep. So in terms of our process, we're very lucky to have a group of very committed members and very experienced members at the CFA. So we'll all review the proposals, and we'll select 5. You may have heard that in phase 1, we had selected 5 top proposals who were getting funding, and then another 10 that were getting mentoring. We felt that was diluting a little bit our capacity to support the proposal. So here we're really going to focus on 5 winners and put all our eggs in 5 baskets. And so you should expect questions from us once you've sent us your proposal, as David mentioned, and we'll really work with you to set milestones so that you're not feeling that it's not a clear process. We just want to disburse the money up to $20K based on things that you can produce, so that we can report back to the MAVA Foundation in terms of the deliverables. And then we'll have conversation with you about what help, and we'll get into that with the following slides, but really what help do you need to succeed. And we'll bring on mentors. We'll bring on mentors based on your needs. And so, as we say, probably January, February for launch. That's kind of the first part, how we're thinking about going about it. Then really the incubator is both really, you've got the mentoring part, you've got help to find financing, but there is also a part that is a little bit more just regular training, because you need to have those skills. It's really giving you the skill sets that you will need in part to talk to investors and founders and the type of questions that will be asked. So business model canvas, you may not have heard of it, but that's really now the gold standard for a startup. We don't write 50 pages business plans anymore. It's just something relatively simple that convey your business model. Then we go into financial statements, because you need to be able to read a balance sheet. Those are 2 sessions, really, the financial modeling and then projections of cost and revenues, and then the investor deck and how to pitch to the investors. So that's really that business planning section. The second one is really around your business model and maybe help you pivot a little bit or add on some more definition to your business model in terms of identifying the finance solutions and then the screening, prototyping of your solutions. And then the final one is really before we launch you into the wild, who are the donors, investors, who do you pick? Your time is also a very valuable resource, and some people sometimes go after investors that's just not a good fit, and so you may spend a lot of time chasing your tail there. And so we're trying to give you the keys to that. And if you graduate from the incubator, then we'll help you make those connections that Leonard talked about. We really want you to be successful. Our goal is not to close the door once the program is done and wish you good luck. Is really for you to be successful. So there is customer service after the incubator, and we really want you to be successful. One big part is the mentoring. So we'll do the first. You will make an initial presentation to the task force and to any mentor. David and I are trying to drum up as much interest as we can from people that are really strategic thinkers at nonprofits, at companies, investment groups that have really demonstrated their knowledge. So we'll bring them on. You make an initial presentation, and then we will pick 2 dedicated mentors. Doesn't mean that you don't have access to everybody else, but really 2 people will be committed to you during that incubation period. And David and I will be kind of mentors for all of those 5 companies and going from one to the other. But at the very least, they will have those 2 mentors and then access to everybody else. And then we'll also have online resources available. We can also guide you towards some specific classes that are offered by other organizations based on the specific needs that you have identified, or that we will identify if there are holes that we think needs to be filled. Then the last part, which is not, as Leon said, is a very important part of the incubator, is really the promotion and communication. So we will have the usual demo day where you'd be able to pitch to the community what you've been working on virtually. Hopefully at some point we would have an ability to do something in person, but with COVID, never really know. We can put things on the CFA website. I'd say question. So the program currently is through Zoom. I really hope that at some point we can all meet in person, but for right now, let's be realistic, and we're planning 100% on Zoom for right now. And you'll be also featured on our social media. We've got pretty good relays there to make sure you get the exposure. And then for the ones that really commit to going through the entire process, we'll definitely make introductions. Now, we want to be clear that you need to go through the process because contacts are, especially with those people, foundations, investment groups, are really valuable. And so we want to make sure you're ready, you have a deck that really will be impactful. But if you go through the incubator, we're committing to you that we'll make those introductions for you, and not just introductions, but we'll make sure that you talk to the right person, and we're trying to increase your chances of being funded. I think that's my last slide, David. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to shout out to our financial and technical partners. We are also in discussion with BNP Paribas, who looks like they'll also come on as a technical, potentially financial partner. And they also have a new impact investing fund that they're interested in looking at opportunities for. So that's it for our presentation. We can open it up for questions now. I see there's at least something in the chat box, and you can also raise your hand if you want to just ask your question outright. And just note again here, submit any questions or offline applications to incubator@cfalliance.org. And the final submission date is December 1st. So please get your proposals in before then. And yeah, opening it up to questions. Whoops. Let me stop the share. All right. Okay. Yeah, so the question was, is the program done through Zoom or in person? So yeah, we interestingly had planned the entire thing in 2019 through the internet, virtually. We hope to have physical presentations at the IUCN World Conservation Congress. Unfortunately, that got delayed. So we did the whole thing through Zoom and online, and it worked quite well. And this enables us to sort of tap into our members all over the world and bring it to the right people. Next question here is from Jan. You assume people going through the incubator must be English speakers. We had some proposals, so we can accept proposals in English, Spanish, or French, and I'm not sure we make that clear on the website. So we do have those language speakers available. We run the program in English, so for the time being, most of the material is going to be in English. Not sure if we have a solution for that, but if your project is sort of non-English entrepreneurs and you'd like to discuss it with us, please reach out and we can see what we can do, because the CFA certainly has Francophone and Spanish and other language experts, so if we can pull that off, we do that. So feasibility for a sustainable finance idea can qualify. Yes, if the idea is interesting enough and innovative, then yes, the sort of project itself can be a feasibility study. That is possible. I mean, the idea is that you would then take it further. So there would have to be some elements about that. Craig, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and ask in more detail your question. You're welcome to do that.
Sure, thank you very much. Very interesting. Glad that I joined. Basically, yeah, what I asked was, if you have some sustainable finance idea, but you need some real help in conceptualizing it, and of course, doing some feasibility regarding the idea itself, whether or not that can qualify as a project under the CFA Incubator. So, yeah. That really answers my question.
Great, and I would highly recommend Craig to submit this short concept as soon as you can, and
Sure.
then we can have a discussion about it and further develop it. Obviously, our goal is to identify projects with the greatest chance of success. That is one of the
Right.
elements. So, but even if it's early stage and idea stage, that's acceptable. And please do submit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Sylvia, you had a question. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, I was wondering whether no-profit entities can apply just to test the feasibility of a paradigm that could later on give rise to successful business models. Because I saw that the final expected outcome is a business plan, but if a non-profit is applying, of course, the final outcome would not be a proper business plan. And the incubation path probably is not exactly what a not-for-profit would need to conduct its feasibility study.
Yeah, great question, Sylvia. So two thoughts. One is that yes, definitely we're interested in nonprofits proposing ideas. They do not have to be for-profit solutions. They could, as long as they're conservation finance solutions. But on the other hand, a business plan can be very useful for a nonprofit. Really, especially if you're looking at a kind of a revenue-based tool, because that really helps focus on who's the client, who's willing to pay, how is the money used, how is it managed, that kind of thing. And so business plans can be for nonprofits as well as for for-profits. So that's why we're comfortable using that term.
Okay, so it doesn't imply a for-profit model having a business plan. This is what I wanted to clarify. Yes, so the not-for-profit could test its concept to see whether it can generate revenue, whether for itself or to pass it on to local entrepreneurs to pick up and make other local enterprises on the basis of it. That would be the idea.
Yes. If the nonprofit is working on conservation and needs a sustainable finance mechanism for that nonprofit, then that would qualify. But remember, we're looking for innovation, so it has to be an innovative.
Oh yes, of course. The innovative element is present. Is there? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, Edward Perello, have a question?
Hi everyone, how are you? Thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question on the nature of current skills and abilities on a primordial team and how assessment will be done with a view on expanding that team in the future. For instance, I'm not a software developer, but I will need a software developer on the team. It's not clear if I would need someone full-time right now. Certainly I would in the future and would provide a fully costed post-incubator budget for that. But to what extent does that factor into your decision-making? Are you looking for, I assume, key advisors who have those competencies and can verify a claim that, we just need a few hours to plan the next phase, which could cost 250K? Or are you looking for sort of like well-recruited teams at these very early stages, or intention to recruit teams?
Thanks, Ed. Great question. Yeah, it's more the intention to recruit. So we want to know who's there now. But part of the incubation process will be identifying, those key positions that you'll need to actually implement. So if you don't have all the answers right away, what we're really looking for in the application process is who's currently involved and who's will be willing to kind of invest their time and effort to get it to that level where the full team of what you need, and we've developed a strategy for identifying the financing to bring those people on. Or again, as you say, it could be initially advisors that we can put people in contact with and help strengthen the team as it's going forward. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And yeah, we need to get Deep Science Ventures on as a partner too, Ed. So let's work on that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Great. Other questions? Or anyone have any questions for Leonard, since he's been so kind to stay on the call, and really such an exciting project. Or any additional thoughts you might have, Leonard, on the round two?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely just encourage, you know, if you're able to apply, and everybody's time is always limited, but you know, I think the more of these things that you can say yes to, the more time you'll save. I mean, it really enriches your firm in the long run, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. So for us doing the application process, we didn't think we would be selected, but going through the process really helped us to, you know, the process of applying helped us to think through, you know, how can what we know that we can deliver on the physical level be wrapped into some sort of broader financial thing that can help kind of scale our mission, you know, to like a global context. And I felt like that application process in itself was helpful for really rallying our team around, you know, the long-term purpose of our business. So anyway, just I think applying is useful, and I think if you're, you know, we definitely encourage you to do so and make the most out of it if you're able to get accepted on some level to the accelerator.
Great. There's a question for you there in the chat, Leonard, if you can.
Yeah. I think in terms of the experience in the incubator, you know, I think it was great. And I think that one of the nice things was the flexibility. So there were times when we were busy with, say, production work, and we didn't have a lot of time. And I think the team was very understandable of that. And there were other times, like when we were preparing for our financing round and we were looking at some of the insurance issues on the institutional capital side, like parametric insurance, that, you know, we were able to get a lot of feedback and guidance and connection to multiple vendors in a very short amount of time. So you're probably familiar with that, you know, this kind of burst kind of mentality when you need something fast. And I think that was really nice. Just a team having that level of flexibility and that give and take as we build the relationship, you know, between how much time we had and how much time that the mentors, or how much time the volunteers and mentors had. And that worked out really well. So I know it's not really an exact answer, but Jessica, does that answer your question to some extent? Awesome. Yeah, and you really can't replace, you know, like in our business, we do these coastal things, and we have, you know, a long track record in this domain, and we've been able to show multiple hurricanes where we've been able to use nature-based solutions to avoid property damage. And so you would think that we could go to insurers, and insurers would tell us, okay, well, great, well, we can just incorporate your solution into our program of financing these coastal assets. But it turned out, you know, after talking to these senior executives, it's, you know, it's not really that simple to do it that way. But what we do have is AAA rated paper. So if you're able to create an instrument that we can invest that in, because insurance companies are collecting premiums, they need to do something with those premiums until they have their outlays. So if we can invest that in something that is AAA rated, you know, then we'd love to do that, right? And we'd never even thought about that. You just can't replace that level of senior level guidance that you get through these types of relationships. Saved ourselves a lot of time talking to mid-level people at insurance companies. So anyway, final. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Leonard. Yeah, insurance to me, you know, that this is another topic, but you know, it's the biggest gap, I would say, in conservation finance, and that all the risk abatement that nature provides is just goes unmonetized basically, and the insurance industry should really be doing that. So great. Any other last questions before we sign off? Okay. Oh, Judith, let's see. You want to unmute yourself and ask? Happy to do that.
Sure. Hi to everyone, and thank you for this opportunity for the webinar. I'm curious if the members of CFA or how you're working with the approach is geared towards seed funding. And it's because we really need a significant amount to get rolling. And when I've talked with IFC, Morova, and a lot of the other green funding organizations, they want us to have annual cash flow of no less than $1 million before they'll even consider us. So we're not ready for a Series A. We've done our pilot, we've done our testing. I love the opportunity to participate in this type of incubator because we are a pretty unique solution. But I'm just curious, is it a good fit for your partners?
David, want me to tackle that, or just because we were in that?
Sure, Leonard. Yeah.
And you can tackle it too, but just my perspective, we were in the same boat. We had revenue less than $1 million. We weren't ready for institutional capital when we started the program. And I think what the program did for us is it didn't give us the revenue, right? We had to go out there and get that. But understanding the repeatable unit economics and clarifying how you're going to make money, or how you're going to make, whether you're a nonprofit or for-profit, you have to show that what you're doing repeatedly has some sort of financial sustainability. And we found that once we were able to get a non-ESG investor to get interested. So once we're able to have that 30-second understanding of this is how we're able to make money and this is how it's financially sustainable, simplify that. And the CFA Incubator helped us to simplify that story and helped us to clarify that. Once we got that story in line, then we're able to pitch it to not just ESG focused investors, but traditional investors. And, if you're able to do that, then the ESG investors are doubly excited, right? So, but I think that was our struggle personally. And I think a lot of early stage kind of seed entities, your revenue is less than $1 million, but as long as you can really clarify and simplify how you're going to get to that $1 million soon, and make it simple, then you're kind of building, you can get some people as earlier stage seed round investors. We did a safe round, so simple agreement for future equity. We ended up bringing in around 900K of that. That kind of gave us some breathing room. And by now we have $1 million in revenue. And so now we're ready for, those larger institutional investors that are interested. And it's not just ESG now, it's traditional and ESG focused funds. So just our perspective. I'm sorry to kind of jump in there, David, but if you want to add on.
No, that was great. I was actually going to push it over to Ben Guillaume to see if Ben had some thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're definitely, that's what we're doing. Mainly pre-seed and seed. I'd say usually you've got a pre-money valuation that's, $3 to $5 million. I've seen some recently because everything is getting more expensive that goes to $8 or $10 million. But that's, and that's the pre-money valuation. So the raises are usually on the lower hand, already a pre-seed round at $500,000, up to, the largest round that I've seen was $3 million. But that starts to be a lot for an early stage. You have to give up, give up a lot of equity in your company. But that gives you some idea of the type of money we can go after.
Great, that's perfect for our range. It's excellent. We'd be on the low end of that, and we do have 2 investors that are committed once we do our full launch, but that's in the 100,000 range. So we need to find another, 150 or 200,000 more for launch. So it's excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be happy to make those introductions. Yeah.
Yeah, and Judith, I would encourage you to look at a simple agreement, a safe note, simple agreement for future equity. It's like a 2-page document. Y Combinator has a template that's very established on the West Coast, and we were able to raise. I mean, we had a little bit of momentum, but we were able to raise a couple $100,000 within a couple months, just by keeping it simple, right? And it's less of your time and legal costs. you know, if you spend 50K on a round and you're raising 250K, it's just expensive transactional costs and a lot of time suck. So just something to think about.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. At the very early stage, safe is probably your best bet rather than trying to do any type of convertible or anything like that. Yeah, keep it simple for sure.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. I'll look into those and definitely include it in our application.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you all for joining the webinar and for your interest in the CFA Incubator. And thanks so much to Ben and Leonard for sharing their knowledge and experiences. And thank you all for your applications that you're going to submit, and really excited for this next round. So, and thanks so much to Kumar for organizing the website and all the background information and all the application process. So. So people are asking for the presentation and the recording will be available. So yes, we'll make both the presentation and the recording available on the website on that conservationfinancealliance.org/incubator location as soon as we can. So thanks again, and have a great rest of your day or evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Just,
thanks, David.
yeah, Leonard also put his contact information in the chat if you want to reach out to Leonard directly.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.